Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk on how to renew your Indian passport, especially for the NRIs in US, and how I managed to get it done in less than 10 days, especially during this pandemic time. I'll also be sharing some pro tips towards the end, so please stay tuned. The overall purpose of this video is to help others who are trying to renew their passport and to get an easy understanding of the entire process from end to end. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. All right, so here's my case summary. So I had to renew my Indian passport in US and I had applied to the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. The processing type that I chose was normal processing, no TATKAL, and I'll explain towards the end as to why I didn't go for TATKAL. The renewal time frame, this is as per the guidelines of the Indian Embassy, is 6 weeks prior to the actual expiry date. And this is something that the Indian Embassy is quite strict about it right now because of the pandemic. Um, and as you can see, like the date of receipt at the application center was on July 16th, 2020, and the date when the new passport was dispatched from the application center or the CKGS was July 23rd, 2020. So you can see that the processing time is 7 days, which is exactly a week. And I was really surprised to get my passport. Now, if you think about the FedEx shipping time, which is 1 day for the application shipment, which is when you actually ship your application documents to the CKGS center, that is 1 day. And when they send it back to you, meaning like they send the old and the new passport, that's one more day. So if you think about the overall duration from end to end, which is from the time you shipped your application packet to when you received the old and new passport, it's less than 10 days, which is pretty impressive, especially during this pandemic time. Um, and the good thing about it is there's no walk-in, so everything happens through the mail because of, again, the pandemic situation that we are in right now. So for those of you who find it hard to believe, here is proof. So as you can see here, the application was received on July 16th at the CKJ Center, and above you can see that the passport was actually shipped on July 23rd, 2020. So just about a week to get your passport renewed. So this slide talks about the required documents. Of course, you start with your old or the passport which is about to expire. Then you have the photos. Then you have the actual passport renewal application form. Um, Address proof, which could be your lease or a mortgage bill or a utility bill or a copy of your driving license or a state ID. I choose to go with the utility bill, which was basically electricity bill or a water bill, whichever is easy for you guys to get it. There's also a change of appearance form, which also needs to be signed. And there's a checklist that gets generated during the process. You need to also include the checklist when you send the application packet. And then we also need to have the online payment receipt, which is basically um, CKGS will kind of let you know like what is going to be the overall fees that needs to be paid. So once you pay it, there's a receipt that gets generated. You need to send that as well. Then you have the specimen declaration form. You also need to send a copy of your passport, especially the pages 1 to 5, then 34 to 36, and the last page with the address. And then lastly, you have to send a copy of your legal status in US, which could be a current valid visa or a I-797 or a I-797 approval notice, a green card, or a EAD or a valid I-20. So any copies of these, whichever is applicable for your situation, just make sure that you send a copy of this as well. So here is the fee structure for my particular case. So again, it's very important to know that this fee structure varies by case and also by the options that you select while you're in the CKGS application website. So For the reissue of the passport under normal type of processing, it's about $75. The CKGS service fee was about like close to $20. And then this is one of the things that gets added is Indian Community Welfare Fund, of course. That is about $2. And then um, one of the things that I opted for is the CKGS FedEx shipping, which is actually good. It's about the FedEx one day express service. So that is $15 for sending the application packet to the CKG center, and then $15 for getting your old and new passport back to you. So it is kind of the two end of row. So that's both together accounts for about $30 for shipping. I also opted for the SMS or the text message notification. So this costed around like $5. Again, this is basically you get a text notification when the process has started, when the process is with the embassy, and when you actually get the passport. So it's pretty much a text notification that you get about the current status as you go through the process. So the overall total was about like $131.95, rounded off to 132. But when you take the money order or a certified check, just take it for the exact amount that is shown in the CKG's website for your particular case. So let's talk about the process from end to end. So overall, I see this as a four-step process. Now, if you read the CKGS website, there's a lot of documentation around it. They have done a good job, but just to keep things simple and for ease of understanding, I would say like this is essentially a four-step process. So the first step is basically trying to log into the CKGS website. There's a section which is called as passport application get started. I've given the links here, and it's also added in the description. So if anyone wants to kind of look at the links, please check the description of this video. So once you're done with this, step one, which is basically log into the CKGS website and start filling in the required information, you'll be left with a CKGS temporary ID, and it's also going to tell you like what is the fees that needs to be paid based on the options that you selected. And then it's also going to provide you a document checklist. So this checklist basically tells you what are all the documents that needs to be sent with application packet, which is a very helpful thing. But also keep note that you need to send this document checklist as well. So once you're done with step one, you're left with what I would say is the CKGS temporary ID, the fees to be paid, and the document checklist. So once you know the fees to be paid, the next step is you need to pay the fees online. So for this, you need to basically get a cashier's check or a money order from a bank, for the exact amount and for the exact entity which they have listed in the CKGS website. So once you go get your cashier's check or money order, come back, log in into the CKGS website, and fill in the information for the money order or the cashier's check that you are taking. So that is basically going to kind of generate a payment receipt, which is the result in step two, right? So once you're done with it, then you move to step three, which is once you do the payment, it's going to take you to the next step, which is kind of going into the Indian website and trying to log in the information. So CKGS website allows the payment to be done, and then only it transfers your information to the Indian website, which is what I call as step three. So once you move to the Indian government online passport site, you go there, you register yourself, you create a username and password, and then once it's done, then you're going to follow a step-by-step process to fill the online application form. So that form it kind of takes some of the information that you put in the CKGS website, and is going to automatically transfer some of the information to the government online passport site. But again, there will be some more information that will be asked for, which you need to kind of check some boxes, fill in some details, and once it's done, it's going to generate a new application web reference number, and it's also going to generate the actual passport renewal form, which is what I put in as the result of step 3. So once that is done, what you need to do is basically go back to the CKGS website with your new application web reference number, which was generated in step 3, um, alongside your CKGS web reference number or the temporary ID generated in step 1. You feed in your current Indian passport number, date of birth, contact number, and email. So with that, you're pretty much kind of at the last step, which is making sure that all the information looks good. And once that is done, CKG's website will generate a set of forms. So some of these forms needs to be notarized, and some of these forms needs to be self-attested. It's also going to generate the shipping labels for you, and then also the checklist, which you would be using to make sure that everything has been checked before you send the application packet to CKGS. So to summarize this process, it's a 4-step process. You start with the CKGS website, um, and then you do a payment online for the amount that needs to be paid to the CKGS application center. And step 3 is basically you move on to the Indian government site where you fill in the information for the actual passport application form. And once that is done, you come back to the CKGS website, print the completed forms. Basically, some of them needs to be notarized, some of them needs to be self-attested. Um, print the shipping labels and print the checklist. Make sure that everything is kind of properly taken care, and then you actually ship the application packet. All right, here are the pro tips that you've been waiting for. The first one is the shipping. I opted for the CKGS FedEx Express shipping option. I would highly recommend it. It gives you a peace of mind, and it's highly recommended in the sense like it's just 1 day express shipping. Costs about $15 for sending the application and $15 for getting your old and new passport. So overall, it's about $30 for the shipping that you need to spend. Again, I opted for this thing because I didn't want to take risk with any other shipping option. The next one is the text messaging. I enrolled for the SMS text message. Costs about $5. Again, it gives you a peace of mind while you're trying to renew a passport. This text messaging service basically gives you a notification at every step of the process, meaning that it was received at the CKGS center, it was processed at the CKGS center, it was sent to the embassy, the passport was dispatched, those kind of things. Again, a lot of peace of mind during this process. For the photos, this is basically a 2x2, pretty much the US passport photo size as well. I choose to get it done at Costco. It's bang for the buck. You actually need to send only 2 photos, which are kind of fixed to the passport application form, and there is one other form which where you need to fix your photo. But one of the things that I would recommend is just send 2 more photos with application set, just so that if there is any issue, they can just reuse it. Um, but once your passport has been renewed, in my case, I actually got the 2 extra photos kind of attached to the new passport. So I just kind of reused them for some other purpose. For the certified check, you can choose to just get it done at your local bank. The only caveat here is just make sure that there's no typo in the entity name. That CKGS prescribes during the process, and make sure it's exactly this. The amount is almost exact to the decimal point. Don't try to round it off or anything like that unless you want to give away donation for CKGS. For the notary service, again, you can choose to get it done at your local bank, um, or the UPS store. I just went with the UPS store. They charged around like $4 per notary, and these rates may vary depending on your location. So choose what is best for you, for the notary service as well as for the certified checker that needs to be done during this process. So continuing on the pro tips, one of the important things is the documents. So please make sure that you double/triple check your documents using the tailored checklist that's generated for you from the CKGS website. And very important thing is don't forget to include this checklist, because this is the first thing that is being checked. So make sure you include the checklist as well as the old passport. As you go through the checklist, keep an eye on what document needs to be notarized, what documents where need to be self-attested. Make sure it's all complete and it's kind of checked off in the list. The next one is the barcode. This is something that I overlooked at first, but once I logged into the CKGS website, I kind of go through all the documents that needs to be printed. I saw this barcode. So this barcode is something that you would print alongside the shipping label, and you would attach it to the FedEx envelope. So essentially, this barcode helps to get it to the right department at the application center for faster processing. So make sure you include this barcode. The next one is the address. So this is kind of subjective, but I just choose the US address for to be printed on my passport. This might save you time. I chose this option based on what I read on the forums. People said like there's no harm in having US address in your Indian passport, but again, do your due diligence. If it helps, just go with the US address so that it doesn't kind of create any extra processing time for you guys. The last one is the spouse name. Now, if you're happily married and you want to add your spouse name, you can choose to add it during this process. Again, it did not create any delays in my case, but if you're happily single, just move on to the next step. Common mistakes to avoid. Again, this is something that was populated based on information from the CKGS website. So I'll just quickly go over the 4 categories just so that people don't run into any issues, or it's better to avoid these kind of common mistakes. The first one is the incorrect service category, which accounts for almost like 45% of all rejections based on the CKGS website. So if you're trying to renew your passport, make sure you select the reissue option instead of a fresh passport. This is something that they have explicitly said, like if you're trying to renew your passport, just go for the reissue option and not the fresh option. The next one is the incorrect or incomplete name, which accounts for 35% of all rejections. Now, everyone knows their first name and last name or the middle name, but what usually happens is there could be typos, or just make sure that you don't kind of overlook any kind of spelling mistake while you're providing the information both on the CKG's website as well as on the Indian government website. So both the information should match. If there's any mismatch due to a typo or due to a extra space or something, it's going to cause issues or delays in your processing. The next one is the incorrect passport details, which accounts for 10% of all rejections. Again, this is kind of tied to making sure that whatever information you enter in the CKGS website should kind of exactly match with the information that is entered on the Indian government website. And if there's any mismatch, again, this could also cause delays. The last one is incorrect date of birth. This is just to make sure that the date is entered in the DDMMYY format instead of the US date format. Just make sure, double check the dates are being entered in the right format. All right, so the question about TATKAL. Why I didn't choose TATKAL. So keeping it short, I didn't qualify per the guidelines below, and I was, kind of not sure about some of the categories which were mentioned here. But in general, I'm just posting a screenshot here. So if you would like to apply under TATKAL, just make sure that all the criteria are met before you apply for the TATKAL passport service. On this slide, I just presented some of the screenshots so that it might help someone who's looking for information. The first one is the passport application website, which is basically the CKGS website, which is where you get started. So I kind of took a screenshot from the CKGS website. The place where it says get started is where you would kind of actually get started with the process and start filling in the information. The second one is basically a screenshot from the Indian government website where you fill in details. Um, Essentially, it comes in the step 3, which we discussed earlier. You register on the Indian website, and then it's going to ask you for information to be filled in the passport application form. Number 3 is basically the filled in or completed passport application form, which is auto-generated from the Indian website. And in here, you will also see that there is a new web reference number, which is that red rectangle box at the right-hand side corner of the screenshot. I just put a screenshot of the FedEx envelope. This is again taken from the CKG's website. This is the FedEx Express envelope, which can be used for shipping the application packet. There's also the FedEx reusable envelope, which you can also pick up at FedEx for shipping the application packet. Number 4 is basically walks you through the steps as you fill in the information in the CKG's website. As you can see, is like you just fill in the information. It's going to generate a document checklist. Then there is fill in information for the applicant details. It's going to auto generate some forms. You're going to pick the shipping option, which is the submission and collection mode. And once that is done, you kind of pay for the application. That is step 5. And once you're done with the payment, then alone you go to step 6, which is going to the government website to fill in the information, and then going back to the CKGs, which is step 7, which is shown over here. The last one screenshot is number 5, which actually comes into picture when you send the application packet. So once they kind of receive the application packet, it starts from there. You can see it says received, and then once it goes through the process and everything has been approved, and finally you go to the dispatch state, which is basically the CKG's website, or the CKG's application center has dispatched your old and new passport. So that pretty much marks the end of the process if everything goes fine. So we are come towards the end of this video. I hope this video helps someone who's trying to renew their Indian passport. If you do have any comments, please post it in the comment section. And thank you for your time, and stay safe.